lot of that power's gone back to the CFO and CEO, which I say it was always there, but since we are the work spouse of the executive team, we just know how to nag really well and get our way. But really, they can't make those decisions anymore. So many times when you're going out there and you're presenting to the HR person, and they present it like they're the decision maker, or I will take it to my leader, so to speak, yeah, that's where you need to win the motor right there. And they need to feel more comfortable with you. So the decision makers of today is really the CFO, the CEO, and believe it or not, IT gets involved in that one. You know, and I'm sure many of you have gone out to do presentations, and somewhere along the way, either before or after paperwork, IT gets involved and start talking about the barriers that are there. So you need to be able to speak all these languages. And what you'll hear me talk about a little bit more in depth is something I call HR speak. HR people talk a certain way. Brokers talk another way. When you're selling your product, you're talking a certain way. You need to find that happy medium of the language. But CFOs and CEOs talk a certain way. IT people talk a certain way. HR people talk a different way. General managers, office managers talk completely different. Now, since you guys all deal with larger groups, you're really dealing with the upper echelon of the organization when it comes to decision making. And somewhere in there is probably the benefits payroll manager and our HR person. And so I'm going to give you some insight on them, but also on the CEO and CFO. Because what drives them and their decision making is a little different than what drives HR. We'll talk a little bit more about it.
Tricia, just as we're talking about this, like, we had this big conversation yesterday about this. There was like 3 or 4 DMs and I, and we were talking about, you get in at the high level, CEO, and you think you're going well, and then suddenly they get it, and they go, but it's really up to my HR and payroll person because they're the ones that are implementing it.
Right.
And they sabotage it because they've been doing the same system for 13 years and they're scared to make any change. So it'll be interesting for you to talk about the dynamic of high level buys off, gets it, and then the lower level, how they sabotage and how we work on both angles.
And I will tell you, it's not always that's the way we've always done and that's where we're comfortable. They have a fear. And when they see ADP coming, the fear is there.
Yeah.
And I would venture to say in this open room that there was a point where every HR person thought they were going to be replaced by ADP. And that came from, I think it's called HR technology before you guys renamed it. And it came from you guys putting HR people on the ground. And so it was hard for HR to embrace that. The other part of the dynamic is the psychology around, you went to my boss, now you want my acceptance. You should have came to me first.
Right.
So it's just like if you're in a household and you're married, who really makes the decisions? It's usually the wife.
Right.
Right? So it's all about getting their buy-in from it.
It's true.
And you're going to have to play it very, very kind of gray. And that means, like, if somebody, I used to work for a company called Sunroad in San Diego, and they're fairly large. We had 1,000 employees in the U.S. Actually, we always kept it under 1,000 because I never wanted to go to enterprise. That was my own barrier. But I would get the call, and I'm like, no, I'm not going. And we have 400 employees in Mexico. But many times our executives would get these calls about services and this and that. And I, over the years, trained them to not even answer those calls and send them directly to me. That was my own control. That was my lovely type A personality come out. So if they actually met with somebody and they said to me, yes, I made it their worst day on earth. And you might ask why. It has a lot to do with that type A personality. So how do you get around that? And so we'll just dive into that.
Great. Thank you.
So, yes.
I think also when you're thinking about this, when the CFO or CEO tells you it's up to the payroll HR department, a lot of times because the conversation that we've had is centric to payroll and HR. If we're not connecting with the C-level emotionally about the things that they care about and wrapping our solution into the overall strategy of the organization, then they're going to delegate. So we'll talk a little bit about that in a little bit, but I think that's a really key component because that's what they're doing is they're saying, I like it, theoretically, makes sense, I'm on board, go get them on board because it's not my area. Right?
And they don't want those work spouses coming back to them and complaining to them later about everything that went wrong. They don't want to hear it. They got better things to do. So later on in the slides, it talks about what an HR person wants to hear, what the CEO wants to hear, what the CFO wants to hear, because there really are 3 different languages going on there. And they don't want to all hear the same thing. So it's almost like tailoring your words to make sure that the comprehension is there. And so going back is how do you get that emotional buy-in from HR once the C-suite has sent you there? You can't go in with your leader told me to come see you. Because unfortunately that's what happens many times. Let's just say the CEO name is Paul. Yeah, Paul told me to come and talk to you and he really likes this system. you've already put me on guard as an HR person. Oh, really? Did Paul tell you also that he makes the decisions? Because that's not true. It is true, but it's HR that can make everyone's life a nightmare. And I'm sure you've all been through an implementation or a sales strategy like that. So when you're going and addressing HR coming from the C-suite, you can't go in like, I just came from the leader, and he told me to see you. You need to address them like, we know you're really the leader, we know you're really doing all this hard work, and we know they don't really understand what you do all day. So I want to sit down and talk to you to make sure our solution is a solution that you need, that we can help you and partner with you. You need to make it all about them. Because in one of my slides here further, and again, I said interrupt me because I'm going to jump all over the place here. I talk about the type A personality. Does anybody know what that is?
I have no idea.
No. Are you with you? So, you know, the
What is
type A
that?
personality wants to be
Your
successful.
picture in the dictionary.
She said type A personality is my picture in the dictionary.
Yeah, pretty much. You want to take control of the situation. You
I'm
want
a
to
type
control
B,
your own
actually.
destiny. You want success.
Passive
You want
aggressive.
everything to go perfectly. And that's the type A personality. What many people don't get is that HR is that same personality. And so when two type A's get going and both of you want to control, somebody's got to lose, right? So it's all about taking your own personality, taking your type A, tuck it in your back pocket for a second, and become a subservient leader to them. Because they can see through you. We're very good at putting on faces of, oh, we're so nice and polished. We've got so much work to do. We seem like we're so meek, but yet we've got claws and daggers and all kinds of things behind our door. I'll tell you a quick story. So, working as an HR director, I had only 3 people in my department with 1,400 employees, and people said, well, how did you do that with like 2.5 EEs? I go, I had ADP. And that is my standard answer before I became a business alliance partner. And they can tell you, I was referring business to you guys before we even did this agreement. It was about, if it's the right thing for the client, it's the right thing. And I used ADP as my extra HR person. Always has been, probably always will be. So one day, my gatekeepers were out to lunch, and I'm digging through somebody's desk up front. Somebody comes up and says, hi, we're here to see Tricia. And I'm looking at them like, dude, with today's technology, if you can't tell it's me, this is my ego, if you can't tell it's me, you really, really lost it. And you know what, I feel like playing with somebody today, so, oh, you know, let me see if she's available. Can I say who's calling? This is so-and-so from ADP. And I'm like, so we have ADP, it was my first thing. They didn't call, they don't have an appointment, and they don't even realize who they're talking to. So I go back to my office, I walk in the office, I came out, I said, you know, great news, she's got about 10 minutes for you. Oh, great, they're fixing their seats and their ties. Both of them came walking in with their briefcase. It was a visit from Total Source, by the way. Yeah, you had to. So,
Account review meeting, right?
Huh?
Account review meeting?
whatever. You know, it was one of those days I was looking for something, couldn't find it, and I had a salesperson come to my door, and I'm like, I'm a little hungry, let the lions come out, right? So I walked into my office, and I said, oh, have a seat right there. And they said, well, will Tricia be right there? And I said, yes, she will. And I walked back out, walked back in and sit at the table, and they're just like, and I'm like, oh, I'm Tricia. And oh, we didn't realize it till the sweat starts to bead. The interesting situation was, it was someone who was experienced, and I guess they were training somebody else, or they were coming out in pairs. And I think Trey knows and others know that if I see a weak link in a chain, and this is the type A personality coming out, and you all have it in you, you go after the weak link because it's easier to break, right? So they sit down, they go into their spiel, and the senior guy was doing all the talking. I go, you know, I don't want to hear from you, you tell me. And I knew he really didn't know. It was like deer in the headlights moment. And I'm just like, oh, this is going to be fun. I leaned back in my chair, and I just started hammering questions at him, one he couldn't answer. Poor guy couldn't take himself out. The other guy's trying to answer. I'm like, I really don't want to hear from you. You know, you tell me. You know, and it was a beating. Ever been in a meeting like that? You wonder why they're doing that? It's all about control.
Yep.
It's that type A personality coming out. And most people do not know that HR professionals, we run in that realm of control. It's our house. It's our company. Forget about the C-suite. They don't do anything. They don't know what we're doing. And that's just the thought mentality. It's like we all went to a special school that we repeated this mantra over and over again. So long story short, I actually let them quote the company because I kind of knew they were going to come back with, we can't do it because of the work that's You know, I wanted them to go through the exercise, and I wanted the new guy to learn something. To this day, I see that guy every once in a while. I go, oh my God, I learned the best lessons from you. You ate me alive that day. I go, oh, you know, good. He says, yeah, but I'm doing great. So I think what I'm trying to say is when you're coming from the C-suite, you're coming down to the HR community, you need to kind of placate to us. Make sure you explain to them that I have really no idea how hard your job must be. I mean, wow, you've got all this. Boost their ego a little bit. They will relax more. And don't do it too much because we can see through it. They'll relax a little more and then start talking about the things that you would like to help them solve. Because one of the biggest weaknesses with the type A personalities, they don't know what they don't know, but they're also not willing to admit what they don't know. So you run into a lot of HR people that have the big fancy title, they really have no clue what they're doing, and you can spot them a mile away. They're afraid of that too. So that wall goes up because they know that you probably know they have no clue what they're doing. Recently I was talking to a VP of HR, they had 2,000 employees, and she said, oh, we're downsizing, we're doing this, we're going to end up with 900 employees, and I really don't know how to handle this leave or the WARN Act. And I'm like, you are from where? You know, and you hear these things, but you know, we keep in our circle, we share our knowledge with each other and our weaknesses only with each other. So when you're going out and working with them, you really need to downplay your type A personality and really work with their ego just a little bit more. Hopefully that answered the question a little bit, right? So, I mean, you need to use some of those actionable statements like, wow, you know, we've got a great organization here. Make it seem like it's their company. You can quickly read how they respond. Say, your company, your workload, your this, your that, because it puts them on the pedestal with the C-suite. Because there's so many that think they're part of the C-suite and they're really not. So this slide here talks about the infamous meeting, where you go and you're like, workforce now can do everything these people want, and I just know this whole solution will be bundled, the whole package added, you know, this and that, everything's gonna work. HR person like, you know, how much work is this implementation? I really don't have time for this. I don't even have time for this meeting. What's talking there? That's fear, but it's also, I know that you guys could probably use so much that could replace me. How do I work around that? You need to make them comfortable in that meeting right then and there. You say, you know, we know you guys have a lot of stuff, and you know ADP offers every product there is to help the HR community be as successful as they can. But we're only going to work with the products that you feel are necessary for your organization. I'll make some recommendations too, but ultimately, you know, you need to look at what this looks like. And you do this in the room with the CFO or CEO. You kind of placate to them for decision making. And you watch the dynamics between the CFO and HR. And you can tell if there's a work spouse situation going on there. The CFO, there's got to be an easy way to get this done. I mean, CFOs are always complaining about their reports, their stats, and how come I can't get them. And, you know, it's HR people, well, I have to build in a report writer, that's going to take me 4 days, blah, blah, blah. It really doesn't take that long. It doesn't take that long at all. It takes about 5 minutes. Now, the old report writer, yeah, that would just do the drop down. You can get any report in 5 minutes, but it's very interesting, the dynamics of HR and payroll. We never want to tell anybody it's that quick. Why? Because that's our silo. We're kind of protecting our jobs. I mean, many HR professionals that are into job protection better than anything. And I think you need to understand that when you're going into those dynamics, because it just may not change. Your payroll person, I worked with ADP before, and I put ... because I say there's 2 crowds out there. They either love ADP or they hate ADP. And it's like, how do you rebrand yourself to get people more over to the I love ADP versus I had them before and I had a bad experience. Usually if you've had a bad experience with ADP, is what I tell people, was user error. But again, type A doesn't want to hear that, right? When something went wrong with payroll calculation, it had nothing to do with the system. It had everything to do with the person who entered the information. But are they going to admit that? Absolutely not. They're going to blame the system because that's what they want to tell the CFO to protect their job. Does that resonate with everybody?
Yeah, but how do you navigate that then? That's something that we run into day in and day out. So how do you navigate that? How would you navigate that?
Which part? I hate or I had a problem with them before?
You know that it was user error.
Oh yeah, and they know it's user error. But they're just very good. They've been telling the story so long, it's become theirs and it's the truth. You first of all find out, well, what system were you using? They're going to say Problem Pay Expert or PCPW, and you're going to talk about, well, this is why ADP reviews their technology every year, and they look for the latest and greatest to upgrade. And we listen to people like you. In fact, you know what? Let me get your name and phone or email address. I think I have it here, because I'd love to send it up to the folks that do that type of review to make sure they know what your concerns were with the old system. You've now taken their whole shield away, making them feel like they're going to be part of something, and you don't have to actually do it because they're going to forget as soon as you leave anyway. Right? Right? You think about it. I mean, you tell you what, yeah, I'll get to it. You're hoping that she forgets, and she usually does. 2 weeks later, she might remember.
My wife doesn't.
That's just kind of the truth of it. So it's about asking them, going through that, because you're not going to get past that barrier until it occurs. So if I can give you one of the best tidbits is, usually when you're meeting with HR or payroll, and they're a director, small or large company, was it about 75–80% women? Is that about right?
Yeah.
Sometimes higher. And women in the room, forgive me if I tell all the secrets we were told when we were 5. Understand that it's their feelings. Understand that they need a moment to voice their complaint. They want to be heard. They don't want you to fix it. They just want you to listen to what they have to say. So you've been in the room. It's gender split here. You've been in the room. Just think about what happens at home if you're married. She comes home, downloads all this stuff that went wrong. You go to fix it, and she gets mad at you. You want to know? I want you to listen. That's it. So I say, if you're dealing with an HR director, even if the executives are there and men are there, let her voice the opinion, let her voice her frustrations, let her get it out, acknowledge it, and then talk about the advances in your system, what you do on an annual basis. And it's based on feedback, because I think this is true, it's based on feedback coming from your customers, some of the upgrades and different things you do to your system.
Right.
And I know that's true, I was on one of the teams that helped do that. So you talk about that and say, rest assured that although you have that experience in the past, we do listen, as we did just now. At any point in time during this implementation upgrade, we're here to listen. In fact, if you want to be on that team, we can help get you on that team. They're like, I don't really have time for that. But they're going to feel good because you just acknowledged them. Just listen sometimes and let it come out. You don't need to be afraid of the men in the room, the type A's, the CEO, CFO, because they know what the work spouse is doing. They get it. I don't think you need to be worried that that decision is going to go south because of what's being said. Yes.
Deborah, you were laughing there because it sounds like this is something you run into once in a while. Same, different, same approach.
Are you talking about when you're in a room with a group of women who are complaining? 100% you listen to them. They're dead on in terms of women don't want things fixed, they just want to vent. So, but that really you're speaking more to the men in the room, which I think that.
That's why all the women laugh, because we kind of already know that we're supposed to just listen.
Right. No, and I think one of the approaches that I tend to use is, of course, is to listen and to understand and to empathize and also to befriend, to let them know that the reason we talk to a CFO or a president is so that we can also give them the ammunition to be able to sell that to the people who are signing the bottom line check.
Right.
So it's never about going above somebody else's head. I'm here to help you to be able to sell it to the rest of the organization. And I do, as much as we think that the CFO and the CEO do make the decisions, and they do a lot of times, if that HR person doesn't want it, or you have gone, like you said, above their head, they will do everything kicking and screaming to make sure you don't get it, even if they need it, because you did that to them, and that is a woman thing.
Yes.
I
Yes.
just nod your head back there.
Yes, I took down this quote you were saying about subservient leader, and I know you expanded on a little bit, but for me personally, I think I could really benefit from more of that. You're saying, use some terminology like help them solve. I think one of the biggest challenges when you're in a process and you have the executive sponsorship and the HR business partner wasn't a part of that initial buy-in, it becomes a very delicate dance that you do to get them to really collaborate and partner and give you that information you need to work together to build the case back to the C-suite, right? And like you said, it's their house, and at the end of the day, while they may not be able to sign off on the deal, they can certainly kill the deal. And so
Yes.
I personally would like a little bit more of your insight around this subservient leader, because I think that's really powerful.
And you know what, I have a great short article that I'll send, that they can send out to you guys about subservient leadership. And it's about, you're truly the leader of the room, but you're being a servant. It's almost like servant leadership, but it's subservient. You're really letting the other person drive the conversation, drive everything, so they come to the conclusion that you want. It's what we women call manipulation, but it's really a short article to really help you understand the dynamics of the personalities that you're dealing with and you're working with on a day-to-day basis as far as these closes. But, you know, you have to make them feel like they own it. And if you don't, they won't help you. When it comes down, even though the executives have signed on the bottom line, they will toss up barrier 1, barrier 2, they didn't answer this, look, ADP can't get this done, they said it could do this, look at the demo, it's not doing that. And the system needs input. And I just don't think people get that. You know, it's about getting in there, playing with it, making it more efficient for you. The system's capable of doing so much, just like on the demo, but people don't get that they do need to put some effort into that. And if they weren't part of that deal, or they felt like they came in second place, they're not gonna make it very easy for you.
Quick question.
I was gonna say, you know, it's interesting, and I agree with what you're saying completely, but it doesn't mean you have to conform to what they're saying, okay? So let me give you kind of some examples, right? When you're in there, and I do exactly what she's saying, right? Which is go ahead and take this approach. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create a safe environment for the people that I'm meeting with. I want them to feel safe. I want them to feel like they're on my side. I'm on their side. CFO thinks this, I don't know, what do you think? Tell me whatever, right? Because what I don't want is this, because they know I'm fighting with them. I want it safe. Then everything's going to come out. They're going to feel safe. They're going to tell me, this will never work for us. We'll never use open enrollment. Service centers are never going to work. Da-da-da-da. Our company, we're unique. We're special. We're da-da-da. It's never going to work. I'm like, yeah, you're probably right. And I'm sitting there and I'm talking to them and I'm letting them do it. And I'm getting every single objection I'm going to have. And I've got it. Right? And I let them go. Then I stop and I go to the CFO. And I say, let me assess your staff for you. Let me tell you what's going on. We got Billy over here. This is what Billy's telling me. This is going to be a problem. You're going to have an adoption rate issue. You're going to have this. They think it's not going to work. It is going to work. They're going to talk about all the issues with the payroll and why we mess this up. Let me tell you, we pay 1 in 6 Americans. We're pretty good at it. Sometimes we do mess stuff up, but a lot of times it's user error. Here's what's happened. When we go and we do this presentation, this is going to be an obstacle for you. I'm going to need your leadership and sponsorship managing it. This is going to come up and da-da-da-da, watch it, whatever, and get them ready. Then we go fast forward. Everything's done in the presentation. Remember, Billy, it's never going to work. Self-service is never going to work. Service centers are never going to work. I present, and I'm throwing up service, and I'm like, yeah, but that's exactly right. Maybe, right? And again, it's not with all of them. I'm doing this within the HR department too, right? And I'm finding my coaches. Then maybe I present HR, to present to everybody in front of the CFO, the service centers. Billy loses her mind. He can't even help it. He's like, we talked about this. He's like, I didn't think that's going to, I can almost kind of like poke at him in the presentation. They're going to blow up. Let me tell you what happens when they do. They blow up. And what happened? Everything I told the CFO that was going to happen just happened. I don't have to answer it. He takes care of it. Right? But if we don't have the safe environment to understand what the issues are, to be able to create this. The other thing is, you may, like I said, you may be going into HR departments and they have 5 or 6 people and they maybe need 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Right? If that, you know what you're doing? You know what Billy's doing? Creating ROI. So when the CFO asks me, I've got 5, you say I need 3, which ones do I keep? I say you keep the 3 that are on board. You get rid of the 2 that are fighting. I don't care what their titles are, what the responsibilities are. But keep the 3 that are engaged, that are on board, and that are going to fight to adopt the change that you're laying out for your company.
Jeff, curious. You've run through a lot of sales processes, right? I'm
sure you've run into these types of scenarios. Different approach, same approach?
Pretty damn close, I have to say. I mean, I'm gonna go wide and find out who my coaches are, and I'm also gonna figure out where my pros and cons are. And the reality is, if you don't, you set yourself up for no decision or failure or sabotage. All potential gonna happen.
Otherwise, you're sitting there in the presentation and you're giving it. And here's what you don't want to have happen. You don't know what the objections are. And then you're done and you leave and then they blow up on you. When you're not in the room to defend it. That's where we're getting hammered. Right?
100%.
We gotta know where they're gonna come and where they're gonna attack us by giving them a safe environment to show us that. Then we need to preemptively manage it. Then we need to get ready. Then we need to poke at them and have them blow up in front of us if we can. And then, or when they do it later, everybody's ready for it. And we've already addressed the issues. You're gonna hear this, you're gonna hear this, you're gonna hear this, you're gonna hear this. Let me tell you why.
How many of you guys do executive buy-in to do your analysis with the user groups? Or help them start the call, or be involved, or any of it?
That you hype?
Always.
So, why do you do that, Heidi?
Because if they're not aware of the process that you're going through, and they're not expecting you to come back to them with data and analytics and information about different potential situation during the demo, proposal process, then you're banking on somebody else to try and sell or not sell our services up the chain. Yeah, I mean, even if you have the HR team buy-in and they want it, do they have the confidence to go into the C-suite and say, I need to spend $30,000 to implement this system, and it's gonna increase our spend with ADP by $100K a year? Are they comfortable working with those numbers, even if you have their sponsorship?
So I think the point we got all this, especially when John brought it up and you reiterated, is that we have to sell to everybody.
Yeah.
No, everybody in the executive, or maybe we started low, whatever happens to be, you have to sell to everybody in the organization. You have to know who's a pro, you have to know who's a con. Is the con have enough power to outweigh your pros?
And how do you neutralize it?
Yeah, can you neutralize it? Sometimes you can't. And then, sometimes people are threatened. It's feasible. People do get threatened. It's usually people that are low end. I've seen some VPs of HR get extremely threatened by ADP, but they're basically dipshits. So they're
He's right, I mean, they
How do you truly feel, Jeff? How do you truly feel?
And saying all this stuff that they're not doing, right, all the schmutz that's underneath the rug.
Yeah.
Right, so we're coming in and we're saying to them that we can do things more efficiently, more effectively, whatever it is, and to help them, they are very concerned that once they're cleaning up or getting ready to do an implementation, what we're going to uncover to expose them to their inefficiencies. And so I think it is very important, as we're talking about, what I try to do is let either the president know, or the CFO, or whomever, that I'm meeting with different people within the organization and would also like to meet, because we've all gotten stuck where we meet with the HR person, she says, I'm the decision maker, you don't need to talk to anybody, but if I've already talked to them, and they're aware, then obviously that's much more effective than telling them after the fact, so that's very important.
And to reiterate the point, you brought up a really interesting point earlier. We talked about, you go to the CEO first, and maybe it puts a threat position to you as the, VP of HR. Well, the reality is, if you never got anywhere with HR first and you went to the CEO, so be it. Once you have the conversation with the CEO, ask the CEO, would you mind if I call back to the VP of HR, whoever, within the user group or in the executive level, or possibly consider an executive roundtable, go, would you mind if I make that call back over there before you send out your email or communication, just so I can kind of soften the beaches a little bit? Because what it does, and it puts everybody a little bit at ease, hey, I had a conversation with CEO, we talked about some things that are a little bit more global and bandwidth type discussion type things about strategy around the organization and whatnot. And unfortunately, you and I have never had that discussion, but one thing he was really intrigued by, or she, or whoever happens to be, they are really interested in possibly peeling back the layers for process improvement for our business, wherever it happens to be. And what's really critical for this process? I need you to help me with that.
Right.
Because ultimately, it's your baby. You guys ever use the term HR is the center of the universe? Use it on every call. Because it drops down, you're kind of the barrier.
It goes right in after that ego, that A-type personality, and says, oh, we adore you, we know you're different, we know your company's different, we know you're the only one keeping it together. together. Although that may not be true, that's a lot of the feeling.
Then guys, think about how our technology works. Where does everything initiate?
Right. So, and I think the other thing to keep in mind when you're dealing with these barriers and trying to create that relationship is that HR people, we have our own language, we have our own groups, and we talk. And so there was one thing I was going to share with Jennifer Burrell down in San Diego. I'm on an email list, and somebody emailed me, and there's like 150 HR people on email. Does anybody know in depth about ADP? You know, we have it at this company, but it's not deployed properly, and I really want to know something about it. And these are the things that are happening behind the scenes. Because once you piss one off, they all start talking. It just makes your job a little harder. And yes, I'm a big believer of you can't step on people's toes. Because if you step on their toes, they're standing still, right? So there are times where you're going to have to go around that, but also there's somewhere in there where you need to have that relationship because that can lead to more. I mean, ADP, I think, is built almost on referrals. You guys do so well with that. You don't want to lose your referral because they're running around the community talking negatively about the system and what they've done. And it may not be true. It is about using it. So it's about addressing all the dynamics in the room, the executives in the room, the HR person in the room. And I coin HR as the work spouse. I mean, we're the spouse to the executives. And it's not that they lean on us for decisions, but boy, do we nag when we don't get our way. Yes?
You mentioned referrals. Why do clients ask for referrals? We're not going to give them bad referrals, so why do they ask us?
References.
References, I mean. Why do they ask us for references? What's the point? They know we're not going to give them a bad one,
They're buying time.
right?
They're buying time.
Okay.
It's like, I don't want to deal with this right now. Give me some references so I can check them out. And granted, I mean, you guys use me for a reference all the time. I actually get the call. What's your shorty? I'm like, well, I think you need to do this, 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 and that. Well, they want to sell this. I go, you know what? You know, that's an internal decision, but you know, I would make sure you question them, make sure that what does it look like on the other end. And, you know, I'm very objective. You know, I don't want to seem like an ADP employee, but I am an ADP cheerleader. So they do call them, and sometimes they're just buying time. I know when I was looking at stuff and I had so many projects going, if I need to buy time, well, give me some references. Because they don't.
So how would you suggest managing that then? If you're a salesperson, you're ADP, how would you manage that?
Because Gardenberg hates references. Like you won't give them out, right? Right, Jay?
ADP corporate policies are protect the integrity of our clients and their respect for space and privacy.
I would actually send them, say, well, check it out on SHRM. We're one of the major sponsors with SHRM National and your local SHRM. I'm sure one of your SHRM peers, or we can get you a couple letters or a phone number if you'd like. I think you need to bring up this in our world. You know how CPAs go to the Certified Financial, whatever it is, association. Almost every HR person that knows anything knows SHRM. You guys are a major, major sponsor. And they don't need to know about sponsor, but we say we're a major partner with SHRM. And we support the HR community. And if you need references, we'll be glad to get it, but we have to get permission to divulge information such as phone numbers and emails and things like that, as we would never want to share yours. And they may back down from the reference altogether.
So, sorry, go ahead.
I just want to say something about qualifying the reference step. I'm with Jeff. I don't like giving them out because frankly, I feel like my client's time is valuable and I don't want to overuse that relationship.
Call me.
So I qualify it with all things aside, beyond this reference check, are you ready to move forward with this project? Are you ready to sign, commit to documents, commit to kickoff day, all of this? And if I get buy-in on all of that and they're really just checking the due diligence box, then a lot of times I'll even have a letter that a client's drafted for me as a reference that I can use rather than disturbing the client. Or I'll actually set up and participate in the call just as an intro, and I'll drop off the line and let them chat. But I think, you know, just sending out references just to send them out, you've got to really qualify it, because I think to your point, it's usually an underlying issue, even more so than buying time. Perhaps there's an objective that you're not aware of, and so I think it's really important to ask that question of, okay, if this reference happens and they give the glowing recommendation, are you ready to move? Not only are you ready to move and sign, let's talk about kickoff date, let's talk about go live date, and really flesh it out if there's an underlying issue.
One of the things that I've always noticed, the request for references typically don't come from the CEO level.
Oh, no.
it typically comes from a lower level, because going back to that job security, I don't wanna make a decision on something that I can't come back and say later, hey, it didn't work for us, but I called 5 companies, and it worked fine for them. So I made a good decision based on my reference.
Right, it's that job protection, but I will tell you, when I ask for references, I actually called them, and I would ask, okay, so I'm gonna get this shiny, beautiful box, and I'm gonna untie the bow, what's gonna pop out?
Right.
I ask in my own language, what's gonna happen? What's the real story? They painted this beautiful box, it's got a glittery bow, it's Tiffany blue, I'm excited. What happens when I pull the string? And that's usually the question I'll ask.
Yeah, but isn't everybody's experience gonna be different? Isn't it should be customized?
But it's
every
women's.
client? So why would a reference matter?
Well, we're gonna ask for it, and we're gonna call them and ask in our own language, what was it like for you? What was it like for you? And they're also looking for the names of the company. Are they like me, like my size? Do I know that person? And they wanna see your response. So I was sitting with a broker, and they were doing a presentation or whatever, and the client asked for references, and he got a look. And I'm like, oh, you blew it with a look. He says, what do you mean? He says, I was just surprised by it. I said, you can never act surprised. You need to be ready for that question every single time. Because that surprise look told that HR person that you're not ready for that and you're scared to give it. That may not be the truth of the matter, but it made you seem completely off guard in your game. You need to be prepared. Sure, we'll get you a list of references. We just need to get assigned, release of privacy, blah, blah, blah. And I chimed in on that and did that with them. She says, oh, I don't really need it. She backed away. When we started talking about privacy and email and phone number and blah, 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 she just backed away from the whole reference thing. But his whole deer in the headlights almost blew the whole deal.
600,000 clients, you should have a reference. You should have rating data. The other thing is, when the HR department has to go to the CEO, present it, and the CEO says, did you get references? That's what they're scared about. That's all it is.
It's www.adp.com. There's your reference. You have 600,000 clients. You know it's better than anybody. I mean, I know they play devil's advocate on both sides. I just don't see the value.
But it's the brand, and it's that you're playing type A to type A. It's important to them, or at least they want to make it seem like it's important to them, and remember they're trying to protect their job. They want to be prepared for every question that's going to be asked.
Absolutely agree. That's why I think Heidi's point is even the most relevant part of all. If they're ready to sign and the final piece is just some silly reference, shit will be your reference then.
Yeah.
I mean, but let's find out, that's really the validation point.
Right.
And that means you're ready to commit to move forward. Otherwise, why am I going to that stuff? I got a different question along the line. What about your thoughts on RFPs?
Oh, I hate those. I think people that do that, if they're not a government entity, they're trying to advise and try, and all the time, effort you put in to respond to an RFP usually ends up not worth it in the end. But that's the thing that HR does to make themselves feel important. But also, it's in a language that the CEO and CFO understand. So you need to see what's driving. Do they do everything by RFP? If they do, that is the language they speak at that organization. That's what you have to do. I think they're the silliest thing in the world.
It's risk mitigation. We just spent $150,000 in BPO on a pricing study just to find out we shouldn't raise the price. But we can't go to Carlos and say, hey, Carlos, we can't raise the price. Because you just can't, well, why not? So we had to go spend $150,000 hire a consulting company to go do a 5-month survey of all these different people just to go back and say why we couldn't raise the price. Same thing with RFP.
Hey, Wade, did you have a question, Wade?
I did. I